Guess where I'm at? Welcome to what's soon to be the largest artificial reef in the world. So a few weeks ago, I posted a short video about the SS United States, and I got an unexpected amount of people absolutely opposed to sinking this ship and turning it into an aquatic destination. So I wanted to dive into both sides of that argument in a longer video so everybody understands the possibilities versus the realities. First, if you're unfamiliar, the SS United States is an iconic and historic ocean liner commissioned in 1952 that was intended to serve as a luxury passenger ship and a potential military transport. Today, it remains the fastest ocean liner ever built. It's over 100 feet longer than the Titanic, hosted celebrities like Marilyn Monroe, JFK, and Duke Ellington during its heyday, and was withdrawn from service in 1969. Over the next 2 decades, it sat docked in Virginia and was stripped of its interior fittings to remove flammable materials in case of military use. And then in the 90s, it was sold to a Turkish company, then a Ukrainian company, and to Norwegian Cruise Line, all of which tried and failed to make it a proper cruise ship, until it was finally purchased by the SS United States Conservancy in 2011, who has since raised awareness for the vessel and kept it afloat by paying the $60,000 per month docking fees in Philadelphia while trying to find partners for reuse or restoration. Now, 15 years later, those options have seemingly sailed. So instead of scrapping the ship, it's been commissioned to be sank in the Gulf, just 23 miles off of Destin, Fort Walton Beach, Florida, to become the world's largest artificial reef. Now, I understand to a lot of people, sinking a ship sounds like you're giving up on it, but hear me out. I think most people would agree that restoring the ship would be option number one. If that wasn't possible, then a floating museum would be the next option. But the reality is, we can't always get what we want. And you might not even realize that in this case, sinking is actually saving the ship. But first, let's consider the theoretical possibility of keeping it afloat. Now, in order to save the SS United States, the financial feasibility depends on finding a profitable long-term use. So here's the actual costs. Now, due to the modern compliance and luxury requirements, a full return to ocean service as a cruise ship would be over $1 billion. And converting it to a stationary hotel or a museum or attraction would be $200 to $300 million. Not to mention the ongoing maintenance while it's docked, which would be $700,000+ per year. It could theoretically work as a floating hotel, but only in high-traffic areas like New York, Los Angeles, or Miami, which present higher costs and logistics. One of which would be a permanent dock or mooring location to accommodate a nearly 1,000-foot vessel. If you convert it into a museum or event space, there'd have to be a plan for long-term sustainability, and no one has figured out such a plan in decades, which is probably why the government and donation support has pretty much eroded with the ship. So the bottom line, when you consider the price tag of proper restoration of this already gutted ship and add in regulatory and compliance costs with the monthly maintenance fees, no one will ever invest that kind of money without a realistic return. In other words, it's never going to happen. Now let's talk about the costs and benefits of making this an artificial reef. Comparatively, this would be $10 to $20 million, which is far cheaper than any land-based option. It'll provide ecological benefits by creating a diverse ecosystem for marine life, such as native reef fish, encrusting organisms, and other sea creatures. Over time, these critters are going to colonize the entire ship, creating a thriving reef in what would normally be a virtually empty sandy bottom. This will help restore fish populations as well by providing food, shelter, and increased spawning potential. Now, obviously, since this would be sitting at such an accessible depth, it'll become a global dive site attracting international ecotourism, which is going to generate millions in annual revenue for charters, restaurants, and lodging for nearby coastal communities. Plus, it's going to help support commercial and recreational fishing industries by creating accessible fish habitats. Now, I think a big part of the problem is that people believe that the legacy of the ship will be gone and the history it will be essentially lost at sea. However, all the key pieces of the ship, like the bell, the artwork, the builder's plate, engine components, all these are being taken and put into a land-based museum dedicated solely to the SSUS. So this isn't just for divers. This is just another way to preserve the story of the ship through artifacts, films, interviews, and school programs, and it opens up its history to a broader audience than it ever had before. So the bottom line, it's a much lower cost to sink it rather than restore it. And I would argue that giving it an environmental purpose to grow in new ways for the world to see through a mask or through the underwater videos inevitably to come is by far the better option over letting the world forget about it while it decays at the dock, or eventually getting scrapped for metal. So, since no viable restoration plan has emerged, it's my opinion that transforming the SS United States into a marine sanctuary that requires little to no upkeep, along with the land-based museum, is the best balance between preservation and sustainability. Because not only is the ship's legacy kept intact, it's going to give back to the environment by creating a world-class reef. And it's just going to be really freaking cool.